Hey, we're
Hello,
here.
everyone. We got another nor'easter coming to Philadelphia.
That's nothing in Buffalo, thank you.
8 to 13 inches. The kids got out of school at noon today, which is exciting. You know that I still have the excitement of that of the snow day. You know, that's the one thing.
You can tell you're enthralled.
You do, but I don't. So it's like there's nothing to it anymore. Like
you got kids though. Yeah, it's exciting. It's like it's really
this
fun.
spring. So mentally, I want to be in spring, and we can't.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna have another one of our soccer tournaments canceled. We've had every one of them canceled like the last 3 weekends, which sucks.
Wow.
But that's what you know. You really should be playing an indoor sport.
The kids are soft. They can play out there.
Oh, the kids will play. It's the townships that are soft.
And the field might be a little spongy.
The fields are the problem. Yeah.
Russ.
All right, so we do have a pre-show here, and this is again about baseball. So, Eck, if you want to tune out, I get it. But this is a big deal. This is extra innings now in the minor leagues. They are approving.
This is a joke. Sorry.
They are approving a man on second base to start out extra innings, and it'll start in the minors.
Wow,
and if it's successful in the minors, then they're going to do it in the majors. Now, of course, the end game for baseball to try this out is they think it will speed up the game. I think it will speed up the game, but in a way that is not really fair. Like, here's an example. So you start a runner at second base. I heard it was the last guy out, but let's say it's not the last guy out. You're going to put your fastest runner on second. Your next guy up is going to bunt, and you're going to have a man on third with one out. That is going to be the end game now. Yeah. And if you have a man on third with one out, unless your team stinks, you will convert probably 70% of the time.
Yeah, what this is the college footballization, the overtime college footballization of Major League Baseball. And I'm sorry, sometimes innovations, sometimes change is good. Sometimes it sucks. And this sucks. I'm not a traditionalist in everything, but I'm sorry. I don't mind extra inning baseball. It's actually more entertaining. It's more, on the edge. It's like for people who can't stay there and watch a game for 4 hours, go screw yourself. I'm sick of it.
Well, here's some quotes, and these are really awful quotes from the NABPL president, Pat O'Connor. Here's the first one. We believe these changes to extra innings will enhance the fans' enjoyment of the game. How? Fans don't have a clock. Most fans who like baseball want to see the game come to a conclusion in a natural way. So that would be my answer to that. Then here's the worst one. Player safety has been an area of growing concern for our partners at the major league level, and the impact that lengthy extra innings has. Whoa, stop. Okay, it's not like these guys are moving constantly like hockey.
Yeah.
This is just, if they play extra innings, they play extra innings. I get they play a lot of games. I don't think this is going to save guys from getting hurt long term.
No, what this is, Russ, is the fact that they're trying to adjust to the lack of attention span of the younger generation. That they can't sit still for 5 minutes. I think everybody has ADHD or something like that. They can't sit still for 2 hours or 2.5 hours to watch a baseball game. They've got to shorten things up. They got to keep things peppy. I'm sorry. I know Major League Baseball has to have a different approach to this because they want their dollars, but you know what? Don't mess with the history of the game and don't mess with the game the way it is. It's fine the way it is. Leave it alone.
Well, this is a good thing. Major League Baseball, and again, I think Rob Manfred has done a lousy job so far. I do.
Selling this especially, yes.
Yes, but Major League Baseball had hoped to have a similar rule in place for spring training and starting in the 11th inning of the All-Star game, but was stymied by the Major League Players Association. So that's a good sign.
It's not many times that I'm on the side of the players in anything, but here I am. Leave it alone. Now, the only thing I'm for putting the DH in the National League, but that's never going to happen. At least I maybe it has a better chance under Manfred than anybody else, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. But just leave things the way they are.
Now, I will tell you this: the pitching clock's going from 20 to 15 seconds. That's fine. Yeah. Mound visits are getting taken down. That's fine.
Catcher's visits. Yeah.
And a pitcher must start his windup or be in the set position before time expires, and the batter must be in the box. If not, like the pitcher will get a ball against or a batter will get a strike against. That's fine. I always thought the umpire should give a strike to a guy if he called timeout too late anyhow.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's just common sense. A lot of this could have just been solved with common sense.
Right. But They purposely didn't have the pitch clock in Major League Baseball because the Players Association were going to grieve it. They said, okay, well, we just want to speed up the game. And if the game is sped up this year without the clock, that's fine. But they're using the clock as hanging over the players' heads to get the game quicker.
Yeah, if you want to speed up the game, just put an ice rink down, give the guys equipment, and let them play.
I'm just being told, too, that this is the gateway for also having the DH in the National League. And I will tell you, that day I will go ballistic just on the thought of it happening. I will create a hashtag and I will go on a tirade and there'll be a lot of people that will agree with it. Now, look, American League fans like the DH. That's fine. But keeping the leagues different is still an important thing in baseball.
You know what?
I know nothing. I know little baseball. I'm going to throw this out to both of you guys. Would you rather have a guy start at second base in extra innings or go to 2 strikes and 3 balls in extra innings?
I would rather go to 2 strikes and 3 balls.
I'd say not 2 strikes and 3 balls.
I mean, if that's my only choices, he's only given us 2 choices.
Well, yeah, that's ridiculous. That's 1 pitch out.
No. I know, but that's what he's given us.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I think that would be better than this. I mean, if you want to speed up the game, if you're trying to really find a way to speed up the game, do it that way. Don't
softball leagues have 2 and 1 counts. That's fine. That's
my softball leagues like that.
Yeah, so that would be fine. All I know, what the compromise might be, Russ, is for interleague games, even if it's in the National League Park, you have the DH because
for interleague, fine, I can live with that.
Yes, but not all the time.
Not all the time, because you need to have difference in the leagues. Otherwise, you ruin tradition to some degree. I know the DH was installed in '73, but you know what? That's a long time already. Enough to say tradition is held up. Leave it alone. That's it.
And you have to provide Ken Phelps.
Are you turning your turntable there, Mike? Are you getting ready to scratch a record?
Oh no, I just dropped some.
I'm just checking. I didn't know if you were DJing.
I find it very, very hard to imagine that this will ever pass. Like I think that the guy at second base thing to start the extra innings. I really think that there are too many people like you guys, which I think is great, and even me who just can be dragged to a baseball game on occasion if I'm if it's a nice enough night.
Yeah.
When you go to baseball, you see that you're still for watching the Phillies play and then walking across the street to the Spectrum and seeing a preseason game in hockey and realizing the preseason, personally, that happened to be the game that Ilka Sinisalis scored on a penalty shot, his first goal in his career. But it was just like I don't know. So, but I do think that they'll have a real tough time. I mean, the baseball purists are baseball. This is not even a baseball pure. This is like a baseball thing. Not even it's a purist thing, but it's a regular baseball thing too.
I think so too. All right, that's it. I'm done.
All right, let's talk about another sport. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, March 20th, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen, who's tired of snow from Sports Hall.
And I am Eklund. You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This podcast comes every Monday through Friday around this time to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And no, I'm not a hipster today. I literally just dragged in from my picking my kid up and realized that
I'm laying salt down. I did so much already. It's like
I know, so have I. And I just realized when I took my hat off, I looked horrible, and I had no time.
It's like we live on the farm now. Like we got to go out and make sure
I'm doing landscaping.
Just surviving.
Like we live in Buffalo, really. I mean, that's what it's like.
Today is crazy stat day on the Hockey Buzzcast because we have a lot of crazy stats. I like doing crazy stats. I got a whole bunch of them today, but we want to first start off with my blog today, and I kind of the news that is sort of sweeping the NHL, and boy does the NHL need sweeping. This is it's the Melnick Out billboards, which are now there's 4 of them in Ottawa. This is a GoFundMe campaign set up by a fan to raise the money to put up 4 billboards in Ottawa that said Melnick Out, basically asking Eugene Melnick, the owner of the Ottawa Senators, to sell the team.
Yep.
And I do think it's great that we live in a world that this can happen. Like I think that there's something really cool about this, because this as long as I've been doing this, and I've heard the complaints about Eugene Melnick from Ottawa Senators fans. I mean, it's not
sure.
He is definitely one of the more controversial characters in all of hockey. The Sens are very were at one point a very difficult team to deal with, and because there are a lot of people that are very afraid of him. And I haven't dealt too much with the Sens recently because they haven't gone too far in the playoffs or anything like that. But this is except for obviously last year, but I wasn't covering them during that run. I was more focused on Nashville. So yeah, this is does this have any chance of having any effect? I mean, it definitely, of course this guy has to sell the team. It's you can't force anyone to sell property of theirs. We can't force anybody to do it.
Right.
But it has to have an effect, I think. I mean, I think that if you're a rich owner, you don't like this at all. This is pretty terrible.
I don't think this has any effect at all, because the fact, unless the guy who's purchasing the billboard has $1.2 billion in his pocket and can buy the team, basically, Eugene Melnyk can say very nicely, "Shut up! I own the team. I own the team."
Fans can't get ownership fired. Fans, again,
but they can. Owners listen to this stuff.
No, but here's the thing: they do listen to some degree. But again, most of them are rich to the point where they can just basically say F you to the fans. And I've lived with a lot of bad ownership early in my life with certain teams, and you would go decades with that ownership. And Melnyk's, he's entrenched. Like billboards aren't going to change that.
Harold Ballard was in jail. The NHL didn't make him
right.
Donald's. Here, let me just stretch the narrative. Donald Sterling, the NBA made Donald Sterling sell the club because of the player protest and his racist tendencies. Jerry Richardson, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, is in the process of selling the team because of sexual harassment allegations.
That's a long time. That's like almost 2 years already, right? That he's selling.
Well, the allegations
the
allegations just came out recently. So
I thought it was last year. Okay.
No, just like in the last 4 or 5 months. But the point I'm trying to make here is the only thing that Eugene Melnyk is guilty of is not having enough money to build an arena in downtown Ottawa and basically operating on a budget and telling the fans, well, if you don't buy season tickets, I'm going to have to operate this team on a budget. I mean, it's not something that they want to hear, but he hasn't done anything wrong. And if what he is saying is something that would get him to lose a franchise or get Bettman to be on his case about maybe selling the team, then what about Arizona and what about a few other franchises in this league?
Remember, Howie Spira, all he had was a credit card and a dream.
Yeah. How was Boots Del Biagio?
I mean, and it does bring the question that I think we need to talk about for a second. Is Eugene Melnyk really a bad owner? I mean, and I think that when it all comes down to it, it's an interesting debate that can be said on lots of levels.
Well, what is your criteria for a good owner? Then we'll answer it.
Well, I mean, it is the worst possible question because bad and good are so easily, there's subjective terms. I guess, you've got to compare. I guess all you can do is compare him to other owners. Okay, what is a good owner and what is not a good owner? Like, let's see, what is an average owner? Do we all agree, who the best owners in hockey are? I mean, I think.
Well, he's not among that. I'll tell you.
Jeff Vinik, is a really good owner. Let's throw that out there. Like Tampa's owner, he's a really solid owner. Craig Leopold's a really good owner. I think that
for all the smack talk that's talked about, I mean, James Dolan is a good owner.
Yeah, I mean, how do you define it? How do you define?
Well, I mean, he does spend money. He does.
Right, I think.
Try and keep the team competitive. Does he raise ticket prices a lot? Sure, but he does have a good environment there. It's a great arena. He's upkept the arena. So his positives outweigh the negatives is basically what I'm saying.
I think the criteria for good ownership is to a greater or lesser extent not to meddle in hockey operations. Be the bank, be the be able to provide operating funds and have some control over the organization, but not to the point that where you affect decisions that could affect the team on the ice. And that's where I think, the whole Dundon thing, we're not going to go into that, but, just where we think he may be going is something that's troublesome. Terry Pegula and Kim Pegula in Buffalo have had the reputation of meddling a little bit in hockey operations.
Good owners, they are.
But I think with the new management group of Botterill and Housley, I think they've started taking a little bit of a step back. I think the ownership in Toronto, because they're multi-billion-dollar corporations, they just want the franchise run effectively, and they basically, here are the funds, do your job, and if you do your job, everything is fine. And then,
I just think the only thing the Pegulas have done wrong is trying to get the media to eat granola at the Harbor Center, because it's just not going to happen. You could put granola out there and the media is going to shun it. They're not going to eat it.
They give you hot dogs. Come on. The hot dogs are, well, they're
no, I'm talking about at Harbor Center when we're there for the combine and stuff. They go with that ultra healthy and the guys just pass right by.
Yeah, no, I'm not, I can't do an ultra healthy.
But how about, I mean, if I was to define a good owner, I mean, there's a bunch of, I mean, I guess you have to start with the team's overall record. You know, how has this team been since they've come into the NHL?
Eugene Melnick's team came one goal away from being in the Stanley Cup final. Does that make him a good owner? No.
No, but they also went to a Stanley Cup final before that. They were a very good team early on in his career.
Was Melnick owning in 2007? I'm not sure if he was. I think it was different ownership at that point. And
then he also, some will say, came to save this team, from leaving.
Sure.
There is that aspect of it. And now
that is a basic requirement.
Well, I'll just use a Buffalo example. Tom Golisano saved the Sabres after they had gone bankrupt.
Right.
So you have to give him plaudits for that. Was he a good owner? No, because he operated them on a shoestring budget for years, and they had success. But imagine if they would have had Pagula's money at the time that they had Dominic Hasek and Mike Pekka and the team in 99 and 2000, when they maybe were a score or two from being a legitimate Stanley Cup, having a better chance of winning a Stanley Cup than on the back of Dominic Hasek. So I mean, I think the criteria in terms of ownership is
here's an easy one. Was Charles Wang a good owner? The answer is no.
No,
he was not a good owner. He put outside interest ahead of the team.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, I do kind of agree with that. Although he
did. I mean, he ruined the Barclays Center because that could have been a beautiful multi-purpose place. He didn't go in on that deal. He wanted the Lighthouse deal. He didn't upgrade the Coliseum at all. They had a sewer pipe break open in the locker room, for Christ's sake.
But the Lighthouse thing, now that was not. Yeah, the Lighthouse thing, though, that was a good idea, and it just completely got.
But he should have shifted from that when he saw it going bad, and should have done multi-purpose. And the Barclays and the Islanders wouldn't be in this position now.
It was a good idea because what it was to fund the Islanders with a real estate project. But the thing was that they couldn't get the political support for it. So in the end, it was a bad idea. And if you look at the Islanders under Charles Wang, they just weren't funded right. I mean, that team, if they would have had a better budget, and I'd say the ability to hire people that could do a better job, they'd be in a much different place.
I mean, Mike Milbury was a multi-sport GM. What else do you need to know?
Right. That's a good point. No, there are definitely issues there. Now he, the other thing though is, and there's a lot of chicken and egg in this when I say this statement, but last year they're in the conference finals and they couldn't sell tickets to the conference finals.
Well, that's that's on the fans.
Right, so I think part of this is on the fans. I mean, that's what
we talked about this last year. It's like, okay, if you don't like the ownership, and I honestly, I don't think that the reason that there were 2,000 or 3,000 seats at the Canadian Tire Center open was because of the hatred of Eugene Melnick. I think it was the fact that the building was in Canada and not in downtown Ottawa.
Right.
And I don't know what the prices were like, but I'm sure, if they were jacked up, then people didn't go because of that. But
let's ask this question, because this is something I don't know the answer to because I don't remember. What was the reason they built in Canada?
I don't know.
From what I
remember, must have been some sort of advantage for Melnick financially to build it in the middle of nowhere, correct?
Yeah, there was. I think there was also I'm going to look it up, but I think there were issues.
I think
with the government.
I think the building predates Melnick. Again, they've been.
No, it doesn't predate Melnick, so that's not really his fault. But there was an issue. There was an issue at one point.
Yeah.
If I remember right, where they were going to move them downtown. And Melnick had problems with it, and I do remember that happening. I think that
because I know he could have moved it. That I remember.
I remember him blocking something.
Yes, he did block
that went downtown, and that to me is so he did have a choice there.
Yes.
I mean, I was reading a quote. I was trying to look for articles on this, and one person on Reddit actually put this pretty well. That he said that the number of people within 5 miles of an arena matters. And Philadelphia's 500,000.
Who the hell is 5 miles from an arena?
No, but I mean, just in general, when
you got to go go like 25 miles.
But yeah, but even if you go 5 miles from an arena, like, you're looking at 200. You're only looking at 200,000 people in Ottawa, who are 5 miles from that arena. So like that talks about how far the arena is out from where people live.
But I think for major sports, you really got to go 25.
Yeah, but plus you're also looking at a government group, right? So these are not rich people. I mean, and I don't mean that by any stretch. I don't mean that the government workers aren't the highest paid people out there. So this is a real big government town, and I think that the money comes into play as well. I think that also plays into it. There's no real public transit that goes out there. That's why a lot of
it's one strand of highway going off from Ottawa to Canada, and it was built in '96. And the ownership was Rod Bryden, but back then, which that's what I thought it was.
Why didn't they move? Like, here's what I think
because the building was new, Russ. The building.
No, but they had an opportunity, like X said, to move. Like, remember the Rough Riders left, right? The Ottawa Rough Riders,
right?
And then they came back, and they have a better position in the Ottawa landscape than the Sens do. If you think about it, that's crazy.
Yeah, you're right.
Melnick bought the Senators in 2003, so he was the owner during the 2007 Cup final.
Right.
But he purchased the arena and the team as well. So thing is, the arena was only 7 years old when he bought it. So
but bad is bad. Like, if I
know, but when you're not going to, and we know the situation there. He wants financial help from the Ontario government to help them build a building in downtown Ottawa. That would be. But honestly, I think there was a problem with that, Russ. This is the problem. Ottawa is a transient city. It's a government city. There is a decent population, but a lot of the fans who are in Ottawa are Leaf fans, are Canadians fans, are Oilers fans. There's not a great Senators fan base there. There
has to be now. I know some really hardcore Senators fans. I think there is now. I do.
Yeah. I think so.
Here's the thing. So here's an article, I guess, that deals with trying to deal with Melnick in 2014. And it said that they were seeking proposals to develop what it called the most significant urban development site in Canada's capital. And it says, Mr. Melnick, there are some real possibilities here. Moving your Senators to the city core would bring them much closer. And this is in 2014.
Right. I remember this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he blocked it. And
it didn't happen.
I mean, there had to be other reasons for that, I'm sure, because I'm sure he would want to move it to the city.
Yes, if he has control of the revenue, like he does.
Sure, he had to do it, because this is not, he's not a billionaire type owner.
No. I mean, look, I'm not saying he should lose money hand over fist. What I'm saying is he's had opportunities to move it to where it would make more money. Yeah. But if he's trying to get every last control and dime out of it, then that's what held him up till now. And
what this entire billboard campaign is right now, it's about one thing. It's about Erik Karlsson, and that's really what it's about. Yeah,
and that's the issue, and that goes on. Now that Erik Karlsson's not playing tonight, by the way, which is a curious move. I mean, he is banged up a little bit, but not to the point where he's super banged up, and you have to wonder, like, what is what are they? Is this a move to move him? And they can move him again before the draft. You're hearing it now. They're starting to come out again. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's something, this is definitely a Karlsson thing. There's no question about that. And also an Alfredsson thing too, because of what happened with, Alfredsson and the team.
Right.
There was a lot of bad blood there too. He came back. They retired his number. He came back. They made him part of it.
There was bad blood again, and he left again.
And he left again, yeah. So I mean that really, Alfie and Karlsson are two guys that this town just absolutely adores.
Right.
That's been that's shown. I mean, some people that I talk to tend to think he's a bully. This is what I get a lot. I get a lot of people who act like he's a bully, like he's a guy who goes out there and threatens to move the team whenever they aren't winning. And whenever the attendance comes down, he's threatening, and not really with any real merit, but just throw little statements out here and there with the press that he's going to move the team.
That's where the NHL is going to have a problem with him if he does a repeat of what he did before the outdoor game and sort of uses the Quebec City, the building in Quebec City, as sort of a carrot and a stick to get people in Ottawa riled up and maybe get them moving on building a building downtown. I don't think Bettman will stand for that because, you know, I think the NHL has plans for Quebec City, and it doesn't include moving the Senators there. So if he's going to get a deal done, he's going to get a deal done with the government in Ontario.
I thought they had a deal done now. No,
well, I know, but Russ, until there's a shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, do you believe that the building's going to happen for the Islanders? I don't believe it.
No, I believe the building's going to happen. I just know it's going to get held up in New York bureaucracy, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, and the one in Ottawa may very well happen as well. But until I actually see them like breaking ground and doing something, I'll be a skeptic. But that, you know, the thing is, the long and the short of it is with the billboards in Ottawa is you're not going to get Eugene Melnyk to sell the team unless he wants to sell the team and unless it's profitable for him to sell the team. And you have to realize that with a year left in his contract, if they don't think Erik Karlsson will take a deal that is financially feasible for them, they're going to trade him because it's better to trade him and get something for him than to get nothing for him in the summer of 2019.
Right. And you know what? And I'm not going to kill Melnyk for, you know, losing Karlsson, because at the end of the day, you know, the Oilers lost Gretzky. We don't know if Connor McDavid will stay his whole career in Edmonton. It looks like Sidney Crosby will spend his whole career in Pittsburgh, but you never know.
Right.
And so, like, those things are never certain anymore. There's very few Cal Ripkens out there. And so, at the end of the day, I can't kill him for that.
There's a warehouse of 97 blue and white jerseys somewhere in the Toronto area.
Yeah. I mean, someone pointed out to me in a text that, you know, the Dallas Cowboys and the Texas Rangers play like 45 minutes outside the city.
Yeah.
And both have never had an issue at all with attendance. And it's the same kind of thing where there's no public transportation that gets people there. It's
Rich Stadium, Ralph Wilson Stadium in Buffalo is in the South Towns. It's in Orchard Park. It's not downtown Buffalo. They you know, back in the 60s when they were planning on building it, it was all suburban locations because they didn't have the ground, you know, the infrastructure and everything else in place in downtown Buffalo. Now, years later, now they want the stadium downtown. That
right.
New York State threw $150 million into the stadium in Orchard Park.
I wonder about that. I mean, I know they want it downtown, but I always cringe at that people just don't realize that a downtown stadium like the Capitals, where the Capitals play, the Verizon Center, is not that easily accessible. It's really tough if you're not living in the city. I mean, if you're living in the city, it's the greatest thing in the world.
You have to take the train to the Verizon Center. If you try and drive, it's awful. I've
never driven it because of that. I've never driven to Newark, you know, to like, I've always taken the train to see.
I mean, you can drive to Newark easier than you can drive to the Verizon Center.
You can, but because it's a city that's kind of like a shell of the city to a degree. So you drive in there and it's not like a big city. But places like Philadelphia, where they're right at the corner of every major thoroughfare,
your car is locked up in a concrete bunker.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier to put something just outside the city where you can because a lot of people with money live in the suburbs. They don't live in the city.
This is the reason why New York City has never had an arena since the 50s, because like there was all the talk with the Jets and Giants facility going to be there before MetLife got built. At the end of the day, it would just cause too much traffic.
Yeah, they a nightmare. I remember when they were talking about the feasibility of that, Russ, and they were saying the real estate would have cost $1 billion.
Right, and when and the Olympics were included in that, and imagine if the Olympics were there, what the traffic would be like.
Yeah. So, I mean,
yeah.
Well, but it's not unique. It's like, okay, we've got Canado with the Senators. We've got Sunrise with the Florida Panthers. We were there for the draft. It's a 20-minute drive from Fort Lauderdale to Sunrise. That, in a non-traditional hockey market, even in a traditional hockey market, driving a half hour is a lot for people to do 41 times a year. Glendale with the Arizona Coyotes. It's a 45-minute drive from Scottsdale to Glendale.
It is a long, that is a grind if you're working 9 to 5 and then you got to go right from work to the game and then home, right? Like that does become a grind. It does.
Yeah, that does. And I think, I don't know what the proper, I grew up right across the river in South Jersey and it was 30 minutes, I thought. I mean, it was
30 minutes from Shea Stadium. Most of the time we drove from Long Island. I would take the train on the weekends when I wasn't old enough to drive. But at the end of the day, those are unique situations. Not every Not every place just outside a city has mass transit like that.
Right. And now, I mean, I drive 45 minutes to the stadium, but it's not a big deal because to me, it's you just something you do. I mean, it's all major roads. I mean, it's the kind of drive you're talking about.
You're also not working a 9 to 5 where you're just watching the clock and you're like, all right, now I've got to go 5 o'clock.
No, that's true.
I got to get to the game by 7, and I got to deal with Google.
Yeah, no, that's all true. But we also have to, as in the media, we've got to get there at like 5. So it's sort of like it's trickier, So it's definitely, as you know, Mike. I mean, it's tough. Mike has to leave really ridiculously early to get to Toronto. To do.
And I like to thank the government of the province of Ontario for inventing the GO train, because that has been a savior for me this year.
Yeah.
As Mike gets older,
Yes. Can we talk about the GM meetings that are going on? Because a couple of things.
Yeah, let's go. Let's shift to there.
Yeah, popped up. One thing is the general managers have voted no changes to the offside rule, which I honestly, don't do it during the regular season. Don't change course in midstream. But I'm telling you right now, if they don't go to the breaking the plane for offside,
they're not going to do it.
It's absolutely stupid not to do it.
They don't care what we think, Mike. They are not going to do it. They are completely, because whoever, and I'll tell you what the reason is. We don't have the stats handy, but they've got this faulty stat that tells them that it hasn't affected that many games, and they'll throw the number out at you like Gary Bettman will when you complain about it at a press conference. But at the end of the day, if you cover a team all the time, you realize that it's total bunk.
But the other thing is the goaltender interference, and from what they're indicating here, I think Elliot Friedman is saying that there is going to be more of an onus on decisions being made in the situation room in Toronto rather than on the ice.
That's what we said all along. It's like Toronto has been silent this whole time with these goaltender interference calls. It's bizarre.
It is strange because, I mean, because I don't think that should be the case.
2 months ago.
I don't think that should be the case, though. I mean, I don't know. I don't agree with this call.
Because at least you have. See, the problem is, Zach, I remember if we talked about it, you're looking at an iPad on the ice. Like, that's not.
No, I agree with that, but you're also on the ice, and I think that when the play is happening, to me, the goaltender interference has to do with intent, and I think that that's better known if you're following the game itself. Than looking at a highlight. When you look at a highlight, it looks like he touched him or he grazed him or whatever. But if you're actually watching the flow, they can see the intent.
I laughed out loud yesterday, right after the show, when the statement came out from Colin Campbell that the goaltenders were getting better at embellishing contact. I'm sorry. I watched the goaltender interference on when Ron Hainsey scored a few weeks back on Boston. There was contact between. I don't think Tuukka Rask was feigning contact when somebody was bowling into him.
This rule is so unpredictable. There's no way a goalie's going to take a dive unless he knows.
I haven't seen one goalie fake it. I don't think
so either. I don't think there's. I mean, there are. I've seen a couple. I shouldn't say that. I've seen a couple that did.
I mean, if Brad Marchand were a goalie, he would, but he's not. So
I saw a couple that helped him along, but nothing like nothing dreadful.
What I mean,
but the bigger thing to me is let's talk about the breaking the plane for a second, Michael. You're saying you think you guys both. I think that there's a reason they're not changing this, because this is such a part of the game for such a long time that this is part of the flow of the game. This is the way referees call things.
It's infallible in tennis. Have you noticed? Have you ever watched a tennis game, seen the replay, and say they got it wrong? Never.
No, but I think that what happens through this process is linesmen have gotten so good because they know this rule, and it's rules and so instinctual to them. I mean, when we see these that are just offside because the guy lifted his leg or whatever, they're not. I mean, it does feel like that's ridiculous because he's still onside. But the actual calls that go throughout that are being made, if you change that rule, you're changing such an instinctual thing, because the speed at which this happens for referees to actually change their thinking on it would be really hard. I mean, it'd be really difficult to do, and you have to make the line somewhere. So why not make it here? I think that's what they're thinking.
But now we're micro-analyzing whether the blade of the skate is making contact with the ice, and it's much easier to determine based on like the technology that they have in tennis. Or in I think they use it in soccer as well, to have a sensor on the blue line on one side and on the other side, and then if the plane is being broken, then you can tell.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to call that as the game goes on. It's going to be so hard for the referees to call. Right now, it's
still going to be on a challenge basis, but at least
right now, what happens is players have to drag their skate, right? And if they're dragging your skate means they can go slower. Imagine if you don't have to drag your skate, you just have to worry about breaking the plane. So now you're skating full speed through there all the time. So linesmen are trying to pick that up. It's not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to do it.
Actually, I've got a way you could end it completely, and be in a totally fair hockey way. If a player, even a home player, gets pushed into a goalie, if you push your own player into a goalie or you push the opposing player into a goalie, you've now got a penalty. The goal doesn't count automatically. Why can't you do that?
Yeah, I mean, the play that I was talking about, the Boston defenseman pushed the Toronto forward into Rask.
Right.
But so, and they count, and that one they said was no goalie interference because of that. But I've seen instances where another team's like Johan Larsson play when they played Toronto, he hooked the leg of Frederik Andersen. He pulled him out of the crease. He went around him and scored the goal. And they said it was incidental contact. Now that's a load of crap. And that's the problem. Right now it's subjective and it's based on the ruling of each individual referee. Now what they're saying here is that the decisions are going to be made in hockey ops in Toronto, and that there is going to be some sort of representation from the referees in hockey ops with them. And if that's the case, I don't think the referees should have a problem, because at least there's somebody of their, from their group being represented in there. But that's where I think the problem is that the referees think that this is going to take control away from them.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Right now, I'm trying to get control away from Kaya. I've had to pet her for like the last 10 minutes straight. 110-pound Great Pyrenees, and if she doesn't want to like have you stop, like you see my hand moving, that's her moving it. So I guess I'll just.
Well, I'm scratching right here.
All right, let's do some actually more fun things here. This is the talk Melnick and rules have really dragged us on here. All right, so let's talk about Ryan Donato. Okay, Ryan Donato last night comes into the league. Fresh off the Olympics. Nets 3 points in an NHL debut.
I'd say the scenario that I brought up with Kreider with the Rangers was correct.
Yeah, you were right. He looked like Kreider. He looked great. Yeah. I mean, he got a goal. He carried his momentum through there.
And it wasn't like he plays like Kreider. It's just the way it would be a seamless transition at this time of the year with a veteran team. But next year, and even Cassidy did actually talk about this after the game, next year it will be harder for him, because when you start flat-footed and really have to play in your own end to win a spot on the roster, he's gonna have to clean up his game on that. Right now, he doesn't have to.
And he's stepping onto a confident team. Like he's stepping on. There's something about stepping into a winning locker room versus stepping into a non-winning locker room that matters a lot too. I mean, there's no question when you go into there. You're going to Boston right now. They think that everything they do is good. So they think that of course he's going to be. It really matters a lot. I mean, the attitude and that mental state of a team is unbelievable.
Although their media was whining yesterday that the game was robbed from the referees because of a non-call, and I'm thinking if there's anybody's media in the league that should never complain about what goes on the ice in the NHL, it's Boston. Sorry.
They've had their moments. Okay. So, anything on Donato, Mike? Are you good?
No. I mean, I was impressed. I watched a little bit of that game, and it was
a good game. I mean, the end of that game was good.
In the grand scheme of things, because right now I think the big battle is Boston and Tampa for first place in the Atlantic. That was a point that really hurts losing for the Bruins, because they were up 4-2. Columbus came back, tied the game, and won on the Cam Atkinson overtime goal. Now they still have a game in hand on Tampa. It'll be 2 tonight when Tampa plays Toronto. But Tampa wins that game, even though if they beat Toronto, I think they're in a really good spot to finish in first place. And, I'm, of course, looking at it from the Toronto perspective of who you would rather play. I don't see a good option there, either Boston or Tampa. They're both going to be tough teams to play against.
Although I got to say, John Tortorella was in rare form last night, because he said, hey, we played horribly, but we won anyhow. I'm paraphrasing. And so
they actually did play pretty badly. I mean,
but they didn't.
In the third period, their defense was sieve-like. I mean, they really.
That's what played horribly. So why don't you say that the defense played horribly? Because the offense was resilient as hell.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Now, I don't know. I don't know what play the Bruins were talking about in terms of getting job, but I was surprised, and I'm pretty sure it was in overtime. Pierre-Luc Dubois stopped 2 breakaways, and I thought either one of them he was going to get called for a penalty. Or there was going to be a penalty shot call.
Yeah, I think maybe one of those plays was what they were talking about.
Yeah, because it was. Yeah. I mean, he wrapped up Marchand.
Yeah.
And didn't pull him down. Marchand still got a weak shot off, but it was close. It was very close.
Now, I think I should mention Sonny Milano one more time, only because if you remember when we were at the trading deadline and we were talking about their scoring woes, I said you have Sonny Milano who could score goals for you, and you're not playing him because you don't like the way he plays in his own end. And now, sure enough, he's had a few more goals. He's got 12 goals. Like, this is something that I think Torts has blundered almost the entire season.
Yeah, you're right about that. No, I think you're right, and I mean that is very Torts-like to do that too. Like, that is the kind of player that he would not give time to unless he absolutely had to, basically.
Such as a William Karlsson. I know Anthony and I had a heated debate at the Flyers game about it the other day because he doesn't like that I'm blaming John Tortorella for William Karlsson's greatness in Vegas. But I have to tell you, it's not like William Karlsson was without talent. Everybody knew this kid had talent, but also everybody knew he wasn't getting a chance in Columbus. So if you're Jarmo Kekalainen, you knew there were other guys you could have sent to Vegas. But the problem is, if you kept Karlsson and your coach didn't play him, what was the point of keeping him?
Right, and I think that's very valid. I think that's what
I think it's very valid. I think that's.
I would agree. I would agree with you on that one for sure. All right, Pekka Rinne, 11-game win streak. The Predators 15-game win streak, 15-game point streak, I guess you could say, where they've gotten a point at least in 15 games. The longest of the Predators in the Predators franchise history.
Yeah.
Pekka Rinne, 11-game win streak. He's 11-0-0 with a 1.64 goals against, a 950 save percentage. I mean, Rinne is he the Vezina Trophy winner or not? I mean, to me,
but I think Chris Mason was sending out, like, if you want to call it fake news last night. He was saying that the media is basically not talking about Pekka Rinne for Vezina, and they should. And I even tweeted him, and I saw a lot of people were tweeting at him saying, "Where are you getting that from? We're not hearing that in our market." And I think that that's not true. But at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter because the media doesn't vote on the Vezina. It's the GMs.
Right.
And I have a feeling Chris Mason doesn't even know that.
It's West Coast bias.
Yeah. We talked about Pekka Rinne and Vasilevsky as being 2 of the top guys. Yeah. We're media. Like, I don't know where he's getting this from.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that in Nashville they tend to really not get talked about.
Nashville take, like, this is like a hometown take where they feel like they're being disrespected.
They have been for so many years, but I think this year
not anymore.
This year, I don't think they are as much, but I think that that's still around. That feeling is that feeling.
And nobody says the hot chicken stinks. So, like, what's the beef? I don't get it.
So, Roberto Luongo has tied Ed Belfour and Tony Esposito for 9th all-time career in shutouts. Now with 76, after Florida's shutout of Montreal last night.
He's still 3rd on that list, though. If we have to rank the goalies
from Belfour and Esposito and Luongo.
Yeah.
How about this one? Eric Stahl is 1 goal away from joining Gordie Howe as the only player in NHL history to score 40-plus goals 9 seasons apart.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Gordie, it's probably more of a big deal than for Stahl because not to say Stahl's not playing great, don't get me wrong. But in Gordie's day, like, when you got older and he didn't have the training methods Eric Stahl has, right? I think it was harder for Gordie to do it, to be honest.
I have to give credit to, if it's Elias or Statsing, to come up with these.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you come up with 9 years apart? These 2 guys scored 40 goals.
The only 2 players. I mean, it's not hard to come up with that. It's hard to come up with, like, to make sure that there is nobody else. Like, to go through like all of history and find out.
There's probably somebody else with like 35 or 30.
There really could be. I mean, there could be. Obviously, there is, because otherwise they would already have said it, right? So they're doing it. That's pretty interesting. This I found on Reddit.
And Eric Stahl is a surefire Hall of Famer, right? Nobody has an argument with that.
Gotta be. Because he's also got the Stanley Cup, so that's the big. The next 4 Islanders games in Brooklyn, on StubHub, ticket prices
$5.
Pittsburgh 6, Tampa 6, Chicago 15, and Florida 6. Pittsburgh.
I'm going to tell you something. If I'm a fan, I would urge all fans to show up because the biggest impact that you could have on John Tavares is by not being there. to help him make a decision. No joke. That is a true thing.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of thing Tavares sees. I mean, this is pretty crazy. I mean, this is really shows a lot.
Well, one of the things that we didn't get a chance to talk about yesterday was the fact that John Tavares has been shifted. I don't know if it's still in place, but he's been shifted to the wing from center by Doug Wade. Now, I don't understand the meaning behind this. Maybe they want to give some younger center. I don't know if they've moved Barzal to the middle or why they've done this.
Barzal to the middle. That's what. They did.
So okay, if that's the case, to me, that's a move of alienation. That's a move of like, okay, we know you're not coming back, so we're gonna give the young kid a try up the middle. I mean, what the hell? If they really don't think they have a case, and this is what I mean, if they don't think that they have a case, and they don't know for sure whether they're going to sign him before July the 1st, why in the hell did Garth Snow not trade him at the deadline? Because they didn't make any moves to be proactive to make the playoffs.
Because I still think they thought they
were going to make it. That's why.
I think they still think they're going to sign him too. I think that I think the odds are still in their favor to sign them, but they are getting worse. And the
odds are not in favor of them signing.
Yeah, I don't see it. So. Unless there's unless there's something that we don't know, and that's completely possible. If there's something like, Garth Snow has talked to him, and there's been some assurance that he's going to stay there. It doesn't look, the optics do not look good, Ak. I mean, right now I would say it's 66% he's gone and 34% he's staying.
And this is probably going to hang out there because they're literally going to be lined up at his locker at the end of the season. They're going to ask him the question, and he is probably going to say, I need to think about it. And then it's going to hang out there. And I think that's what's going to happen. Now, if he says one definitive one way or the other, that would be great. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
But you see, Larry Brooks came out and said that why would Tavares sign with the Rangers for 7 years for rebuilding Rangers when he could stay for 8 years with the constantly building Islanders? That was Larry Brooks' quote.
Well, that's a dumb quote.
I'm just saying that's what he said.
Yeah, and I know. Dumb quote. And I know over the weekend
I think he's just trying to have fun, and that's fun.
I think he is too.
And I know over the weekend on the Saturday headlines on Hockey Night in Canada, they floated the idea, and this has been something that the NBA does a ton of times, the sign and trade option.
Yeah, we brought that up.
Right, and I think that for a guy like Tavares or a guy like Stamkos is a viable option for teams because simply the Islanders would get something out of it, and he would get the 8th year, and they would get something in return.
Oh, I think there's a huge thing to it. I think there's a lot to it. I think that is what will happen. I mentioned it before, and I think that is what will happen because you can't not do that. I mean.
Well, and this is where
the Islanders, you can't. We have never seen a player of this stature leave. That's why we've never seen it. But if a player of this stature is going to leave, that's why basketball does it. I mean,
but this is where I have a problem with it, and believing that it will actually happen. He's going from a team that is struggling, that has weaknesses in certain points, purportedly to a team that he has a better chance to win over the length of the next contract, 7 or 8 years. Is he going to weaken the team that he's going to get an extra year on the contract? Because that's basically what it is. And I don't know whether he's going to. I think one of his main motivations, if he does leave Brooklyn and goes to someplace else, like a Vegas or whoever, is to win, is to have a better chance to win over the length of that contract. And why would you punish the team that you're going to by making, say, Vegas trade William Karlsson to the Islanders? Because they need something back to make the deal work. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Trade for you. You want to know the sign and trade?
Okay.
This is the perfect sign and trade, and this will also include draft picks and maybe a prospect. But this is the sign and trade. The main proponents. The Islanders signed John Tavares.
Right.
Then Pat Brisson calls the Pittsburgh Penguins and Sidney Crosby, who is an agent of both, and trades him to the Penguins for Phil Kessel. Now, Phil Kessel's contract is interesting because he's $7 million for the next 2 more years, and then he's $1 million for the 2 years after that, and that is right up the Islanders' alley.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I don't know.
It is. I mean, think about it, and that's a guy who
I agree with you.
With a very good agent, an agent who has a lot of pull, could maneuver something like that and maybe talk Tavares into even taking a little less to go to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But why? I mean, Why would Pittsburgh? I mean, they've got Malkin. And
yeah, but they would hate having Tavares, right?
No, of course not. But does Tavares want to be a third line center?
No, he might be a winger. There's a talk now that Tavares might play the wing.
Yeah, I don't know that. I think this Tavares stuff may have him on the wing. I don't think it's a snub. I think it's more along.
Look, if Malkin's your center and Tavares is your winger, or Tavares is playing with Crosby on the wing, I think he'll deal with it.
No, but from what I've heard too, they went to him clearly and said, what do you think of this? And he's like, yeah. I think him looking at the fact that maybe it makes him a little more valuable to also be able to play the wing to certain teams.
Sidney Crosby and John Tavares on the same line. What would that do to the? And look, Phil Kessel is a great player.
That would be the most incredible thing ever. And I've often said this because I've been banging the drum that Team Canada should keep Sidney Crosby and John Tavares together because I think they're absolutely complementary players. Like, I mean, Tavares is as good as anybody.
Unstoppable.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got the best guy getting you the puck in Crosby, and the best guy at finishing from almost anywhere in Tavares. I mean, like, and close in, tight in, anywhere. Tavares is ridiculous. He's got bossy like skills when it comes to that. So
yeah, after the World Cup, I don't think anybody's going to play with Crosby other than Bergeron and Marchand because it was so effective. Plus, Kessel's under contract for 4 more years. Cap hit is 6.8 because the Leafs are retaining $1.2 million. The money goes down 5.8 the next 2 years, 4.8 the 2 years.
Oh, like cap friendly is completely wrong, but it's still totally doable for the Islanders.
Yeah, I think that it's signing bonus.
Oh, signing bonus. I'm sorry,
it's the base salary.
Yeah, that's the base. Okay, I missed the signing bonus.
And that's because Kessel's contract I think was around.
That's still worth it for the Islanders. Like they get a great player, and it's at less money than what Tavares is making now, and at least they get a big time talent. Like they get something.
Let's just say this. I can't see a team spending what Tavares has rightfully earned being one of the best players in the league, probably $11.5 million, and then saying, oh yeah, John, you can play the wing.
What if Tavares agrees to make exactly what Malkin's making and Crosby rubber stamps that and says, yeah, I'm good with that. That might make everybody happy. That's like 9.5, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, but I'm sure there are other. Yes, if he wants to go to Pittsburgh and continue and have a chance to win a cup over the next 3 or 4 years, yeah, great. But I mean, there are other teams that might offer him more and other opportunities.
The downside of that's what I'm saying. You're saying, yeah, great. There's not much downside for him going there. That's my point.
I just don't see how Pittsburgh does it. Is what I'm saying.
I think the Pittsburgh Penguins defense and everything.
Yeah, the defense probably needs to upgrade more. But I'm just saying. This is the kind of sign and trade you have to look at because that is the Islanders' best option. Because
plus, if you're the Islanders, you're trading them inside your own division.
Whatever, dude, at this point, it's just
losing
John Tavares anyhow, and he's probably going to sign in your division anyhow.
Well, maybe. And that's the same argument I have about Erik Karlsson going to Toronto. It's like I don't think Ottawa will ever trade him to Toronto because of you want Eugene Melnyk, you want 5,000 billboards in Ottawa. Have Erik Karlsson get traded to the Leafs.
Here's the thing. I mean, again,
or Montreal.
You're really talking about semantics because if Tavares walks away. You get nothing, and if you can't
get something for him,
and he could sign right in your division anyhow. So why do I care if I trade him in my division when I could just lose him and he could sign a free agent contract in my division?
I think you would have to get the team in your division to overpay, and to make it worth your while for the aggravation of having the guy facing him 4 times a year. I think you have to get them overpay, and it wouldn't be Kessel for Tavares. It'd probably be a lot more than Kessel.
Oh, no, it would be more, but I think he'd be the main guy. They would work it out, cap-wise, and they would get picks. But I'm just saying at least you would get a frontline player. The Islanders are in danger of not getting a frontline player at all.
Right. Before we get out of here, I was brought this up. This was brought to me, and it really is a really good article on Hockey Buzz by Paul Stewart regarding what we talked about today. Yours is nice too, but Paul Stewart wrote a really good one today. And I'll read you a second of it here. This is all about the rule changes and what they voted not to do. He says, once again, though, I fear the NHL general managers whose opinions carry a lot of weight in what gets in front of the Board of Governors are once again showing a widespread lack of understanding of just how complicated the problem is. There's also a lack of understanding among some when it comes to changing or adding rules, whether between seasons or in season, but especially the latter, because the implementation issues become even more pronounced. It must be asked why not to alter the rules or procedures rather than just why do it. Otherwise, there's inevitable unintended consequences. Thanks goodness Lou Lamoriello has been there to be the voice of reason in saying that if there are changes, the details need to be considered very, very carefully. It frustrates me to no end that the NHL referees, whether current or past, are given no seat at the table and not even an advisory role in matters that pertain to the clarity and enforcement of the rule book.
Well, they did have a referee in. I saw it written by, I don't know if it was Elliot Friedman or Darren Drager, but there was the inclusion of a referee in the discussions yesterday. So I think they are being included. I don't know how much weight it's being given, but they are being included in these discussions.
I don't know. This was written just 11:53 a.m., so I'm not sure. It probably isn't much of one because Paul's on top of these things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disputing if he would have a better idea than I know. All I know is I did see that there was some input from the referees, but the report coming out right now is saying that the NHLPA has been made aware of the league's intentions yesterday, and a formal request was submitted to the PA because they have to sign off on this if there's any kind of change in the rules, and then the Board of Governors have to vote on it. So they're talking about implementing this in season and having a change in season before the playoffs.
So there's some breaking news here. It's in the college hockey world, but it could affect the NHL in a couple of different ways. According to College Hockey News, Adam Woden, we all know him, they're saying Don Lucia is stepping down at Minnesota after 19 years as head coach. And so Ranger fans, that might mean Ryan Lindgren's coming because he's probably not going to stay there with another coach. So he might turn pro. And Don Lucia is 59. Like, he could easily become an NHL head coach.
Sure.
Because he has a great reputation. I mean, he's been, this is like the first year they've missed the playoffs in a while.
Leaving right now would imply that he's very much looking to be a head coach in the NHL. I mean, that's what I would say. I mean, I would say that if you're leaving at this point right now, this is the time you would leave because you leave before the NHL regular season ends.
Yep.
While you can get a head start on other people if there's, if there's actual before the playoffs end because you can go in. That gives you a chance to get this guy for the draft. Maybe this is somebody who ends up in Carolina.
Dave Haxtell, I think teams will look at Don Lucia.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he may not have to go. I mean, with the potential of a changeover in Minnesota, I mean,
he might have to go far.
Yeah, if Chuck Fletcher gets fired, there could be a clean sweep of the organization. Then maybe he would not have to leave where he is right now.
Minnesota, wouldn't it be so Minnesota? I mean, it would be so.
Herb Brooks.
Yep.
But the Wild, there's hardly save like a French person playing in Montreal is like a Minnesotan playing or coaching at the Wild. I mean, it's just like they're the two places you see the most of that in the whole league. So that's pretty crazy. Well, but it's possible.
Yeah, and I do want to say Thomas Boyle in the chat room is starting a rumor that Elias Anderson could get called up to the Rangers and play Thursday night against the Flyers. We'll see. We'll see, Thomas.
Yeah, we will see. Hope wherever you are, you're safe on the East Coast today. Enjoy the storm.
What do you mean enjoy the storm? Who's going to enjoy it?
I love enjoying it. I love
start singing "Riders on the Storm."
I'm a person who, like I've said this before, I love the fact that Mother Nature tries to kill us once or twice a year. I think it's a great thing. I think it keeps us fresh, keeps us honest, and I think
don't mess with Mother Nature,
right? And I think that it's very exciting. I wouldn't want to live in a part of the country you don't have this possibility. Like you don't have something bearing down on you that you can't control. I love this. I love it. I think it's the greatest thing in the world. So that's you get all the right food. You get a couple movies in, you're all set.
I did do that. So
good. Remember that the buzz is all just hockey. We will talk to you soon.